In my teenage years, around the age of 16, my friend Amelia and I embarked on a road trip. Having spent a delightful weekend visiting my extended family in West Michigan, we were heading back to our hometown in Portsmouth, Virginia. It was late, about 11 p.m., and the dark road lay ahead, nearly desolate. Always looking for ways to save, I had decided to avoid the toll roads, navigating through an unfamiliar route. Lost in laughter and shared memories, we barely noticed when the surroundings started to shift from the usual cityscape to a place that seemed frozen in time. The first sign that something was amiss was the eerie quiet. Rows of dilapidated houses lined the streets, their windows boarded, and their walls bearing the marks of time. Abandoned shops with faded signboards stood testament to a time long gone. Even cars, left to rust, littered the roadside, as if their owners had vanished in a hurry. The atmosphere grew thick with unease, and when I glanced at Amelia, I could see the same unsettling feeling mirrored in her eyes. "This place gives me the creeps," I murmured just as the car began to shudder, indicating that the gas was running low. I cursed under my breath for forgetting to refuel earlier. Pulling over next to what looked like a long abandoned gas station, we tried calling for help. But of course, our phones showed no signal. Trying to stay calm, we stepped out, hoping to get better reception. But what we encountered was far more chilling. While I was desperately trying to get a signal bar on my phone, Amelia tugged at my sleeve, her face pale. Following her gaze, my blood turned cold. A tall, shadowy figure stood a short distance away, bathed in the weak glow of our car headlights. The town was supposed to be deserted. Who was he? The stranger's sudden, eerie smile sent shivers down our spines. Amelia mustered some courage and shouted, hinting that my dad was a cop, hoping it would deter him. But her words only seemed to anger him. Within seconds, he lunged towards us. Reacting quickly, we dashed back to the car, locking the doors just in time. We hoped he would leave, but instead, he vanished, only for a sinister scraping sound to echo from beneath the car. We were trapped, with the stranger lurking below. Amelia's sobbing broke my trance, and in sheer desperation, I tried my phone again. Miraculously, I got a weak signal and managed to dial 911. The agonizing wait for help began. While waiting, our nightmare took another twisted turn. Amelia's eyes widened in terror as she looked past me. Turning around, I saw 4 more figures, 2 men and 2 women, joining the first man. Their synchronized, unsettling smiles mocked our fear. The distant wail of sirens was the most beautiful sound at that moment. As a police car approached, the group of strangers retreated into the shadows, vanishing as mysteriously as they appeared. Shaken and traumatized, we could barely explain the ordeal to the officer. He kindly arranged for our stay at a nearby hotel while our parents were informed. News later spread that the deserted town was a hotspot for drifters and squatters. Though the police never identified the strangers, we believed they might have been inhabitants of those abandoned buildings. Needless to say, Amelia and I never ventured on the back roads again, always choosing well-lit, populated paths. The haunting memory of that night remains etched in our minds, a chilling reminder of the unexpected horrors that lie in wait on lonely roads.
James and I, a 13-year-old boy and a 21-year-old man, were on a road trip from our grandmother's to our aunt's house. James and I were close, and my parents let me go on trips with him occasionally. 3 hours into the drive at 9 p.m., I saw a red semi-truck outside my window and started laughing. The man in the truck was heavy-set with a long, unkempt beard. He had a creepy vibe, but I waved to him anyway. He responded with a groping motion. I found it more hilarious than creepy, and I started laughing harder. I told James the story, doing the groping motion and all. He looked creeped out and disgusted, but there wasn't anything either of us could do. A while later, about 4.5 hours into the drive, James pulled into a rest stop. I went to the bathroom, and when I came out, the man was just standing there. He looked to be at least 6 feet tall. I looked out the glass door leading into the building and saw James glaring at the man through the door. I was confused and walked back to the car. James told me that the man had been talking to him normally. He had attempted to comfort me, but quickly said that he had to go to the bathroom and went inside. A few seconds later, when I was in the car, The man was at my window. He stared at me again with a wide, creepy grin. He started saying that I should go with him and that he was going to treat me well. He offered me candy and just tried to coax me into his truck. I was busy crying, and then right on cue, James walked out and yelled at the guy, threatening him. The guy backed off and got back into his truck. He stared at me with that grin on his face as we floored it out of there. It was around 12 a.m. when we pulled into the motel to sleep. The rest of the night till 8 a.m. was fine. The next morning, we were at a restaurant eating breakfast when that same guy sat across from us. He grinned at me. James was ready to explode with anger. The guy walked by our table on his way to the bathroom and brushed his hand on my shoulder, then did the same on his way back. It was definitely not an accident. James stood up from his seat and walked over to the guy's table. He started yelling at the guy to stop following us and back off. He made no threats, but he did curse a lot. I felt pretty nervous, and I just wanted to go. The guy stood up and smacked James, then yelled about how I was leading him on. Remember, I was 12 years old at the time. Their argument continued, and the cops came and separated them. They got the story and came to the conclusion that because James was assaulted, we could press charges. James decided not to, and we just continued the day. The rest of the trip was pretty bland. The guy wasn't seen for the rest of it. However, James did follow me like a bodyguard when we went anywhere. Even though he was protecting me, I was still terrified.